He was the college idol, the star quarterback everyone saw as a future legend. I was a shadow, hidden behind drawings in a sketchbook. But one night he reached out to me, and it changed everything. What started as a friendship turned into a secret that could destroy his career and my heart. On the field, Lucas was untouchable. The golden boy, the quarterback everyone worshipped. Coaches built entire seasons around him. Recruiters whispered his name like it was already carved into NFL history. To the fans, he was a hero. To his teammates, he was the backbone of the game. And to me, he was the secret sketch in the corner of my notebook, the person I couldn't stop watching even when I told myself not to. I wasn't built for the spotlight. My place was somewhere in the background. A defensive back good enough to fill a roster spot, but not good enough to be remembered for it. Off the field, I found more truth in sketching faces than in running drills. Football was noise. Art was silence. And in that silence, Lucas always appeared, drawn in pencil lines, in glances I replayed long after the stadium lights went dark. One night, after practice, the field emptied out faster than usual. Guys rushed to showers, to girlfriends, to beer hidden in cheap plastic cups. I lingered, tying my shoes too slowly, pretending I needed a few extra minutes. I liked the quiet after everyone left, when the echo of helmets and shouts faded and the night claimed the field again. That's when I heard his voice. "You always move like you've got nowhere to be." I looked up, startled. Lucas was leaning against his locker, helmet dangling from one hand, hair damp with sweat. For a second, I froze. He should have been gone with the rest of them, already halfway across campus to whatever party waited for him. Instead, he was watching me. "Guess I like the peace," I said, shrugging, trying to sound casual. He smiled, just a flicker, but enough to knock the air out of my chest. "Peace. That's a rare thing around here." He grabbed his backpack and, instead of leaving, nodded toward me. "Walk with me." I don't know why my chest tightened like he'd asked me for something monumental. Maybe because he had never asked me for anything before. I nodded, forcing myself to breathe evenly. "Yeah, sure." We stepped outside together, sneakers crunching on gravel as the stadium lights dimmed behind us. For a while, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't empty. It was heavy, charged, like something waiting to break. Finally, he shoved his hands into his pockets. "Ever feel like this whole thing doesn't belong to you?" I frowned. "Football." He nodded. "Like everyone else already claimed it. My dad, the scouts, the fans, and I'm just acting out a role they wrote for me." His voice dipped low, almost bitter, the kind of truth he probably never said out loud. I hesitated, then admitted, "Yeah, I feel that way about life most of the time. I like football, but it's not everything. I guess I play more for the team than for myself. What I really love is art. Sketching. Creating something that's mine." Lucas turned his head, eyes sharp with curiosity. "Art, huh? Never would have guessed." Embarrassed, I muttered, "I'm decent." "Bet you're better than decent," he said softly. And for a moment, I almost believed him. We walked past quiet houses with porch lights glowing amber. Somewhere along the way, our hands brushed. My body jolted like I'd touched a live wire. I thought he'd pull away, but he didn't. His fingers lingered against mine, hesitant, testing, before sliding fully between them. Warm, steady, impossible to ignore. I didn't dare look at him, didn't dare breathe too loudly. We just kept walking, hand in hand, like it was the most natural thing in the world. My heart hammered so hard I thought the whole block could hear it. When we reached his house, the porch light cast a soft halo around him. For the first time, he wasn't the quarterback, the leader, the name everyone shouted on Friday nights. He was just Lucas, standing on the steps, caught between fear and something braver. "Jamie," he said quietly. "Yeah." My voice cracked. He stepped closer, his eyes searching mine like he needed an answer before asking the question. Then, slowly, cautiously, he leaned in. His lips brushed mine, soft, uncertain, like a secret that begged not to be spoken. For a heartbeat, I froze. Then I kissed him back. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't the kind of kiss people brag about. It was deeper than that, quiet, desperate, like two parts of a truth finally colliding in the dark. When we pulled apart, he still held my hand. His voice was barely a whisper. I don't know what this means. Neither do I admitted. But I know I don't want it to stop. His eyes softened, and for the first time, I saw him without the weight of a crowd or the shadow of expectation. Just Lucas. Just a boy who wanted something he wasn't supposed to want. He squeezed my hand once before letting go, retreating toward the door. Good night, Jamie. Good night, I said, but my chest ached with everything I couldn't say. I stood there long after he disappeared inside, the taste of him still on my lips, the memory of his hand burning into mine. Something had shifted, something irreversible. I didn't know where it would lead us, but I knew this. I was no longer just a shadow in his story. For the first time, I was part of it. After that night at his house, something had changed between us. We hadn't mentioned it, hadn't spoken it during practice or watching movies, but the silence we shared had more weight than any words. It seemed like we both knew there was no going back, even if neither of us dared to say it out loud. We had inadvertently developed a new routine. After practice, when most of the guys were rushing off to parties or girls, Lucas would look my way and I knew. We would walk together, not close at first, but close enough. We would walk across campus when the crowds were thin, down empty side streets where our voices carried louder than the wind. We didn't have to say much. The silence between us became its own language. Sometimes we would talk about football, about bad moments in the game, or about teammates who were getting on our nerves. Other nights, he would talk about the pressure he felt, about his father's calls that always ended with "stay focused," about how scouts watched his every move as if his future belonged more to them than to him. He admitted that he hadn't always wanted to, that sometimes he dreamed of writing music instead. Hearing him say it, with all the weight he carried, made me realize how trapped he felt beneath the golden image everyone worshipped. I told him about art, about sketching when the world was too loud, how a blank page had given me something no other field ever could. He listened like no one else, nodding, asking questions, letting me feel like my voice mattered. We started sitting together in the library. Nothing obvious, just two teammates sharing a table. But this was different, as if our conversations had dragged on longer than they should have, as if the air between us was buzzing with something fragile and new. When someone passed by, we would move on to safer topics, laughing at the professor or pretending to study harder than we really were. But as soon as we were alone again, the walls would crumble and it was just us. Morning coffee before dawn, when the cafeteria was empty. Walks past sleeping houses when not even the dogs barked. Sharing music over the phone. Exchanging half-written lyrics and sketches like secrets. Each moment built on the last. Accumulating until it felt like we were carrying something too big to hide, but too precious to risk revealing. There were nights when I would catch him staring at the ground, his jaws clenched, his shoulders heavy. I knew he was thinking about the truth we couldn't talk about how quickly everything could fall apart if someone put it all together. I asked him once what scared him most. He didn't hesitate. Losing everything, he said. Grow. My dad. The future that was supposed to be mine. Then, more quietly, but also losing this. Whatever it was. But the mystery had its own weight. Every laugh carried a warning. Every conversation a line on which we teetered. I knew how much it cost him to hide it. I felt it in my bones. But no matter how much it hurt, I couldn't let go. Because what was between us, even the unspoken, was real. And sometimes real is enough to keep us going, even in silence. The night it all started to unravel didn't look dangerous at first. A couple of our teammates had invited us over after practice, just burgers, beer, and the kind of easy laughter that came when football was the only thing tying us together. Lucas and I went together, careful to keep the space between us wide enough that no one would guess. I told myself it would be fine, just another night with the guys. At first, we joked about botched plays, argued about music on the stereo, shoved each other around the kitchen like brothers do. Lucas was his usual self, loud enough to hold the room, easy enough to make everyone forget the grind of the season. And for a while, I almost forgot too. Almost. Because even as he laughed with the others, he kept finding my eyes. Just quick glances, stolen seconds. It was dangerous, and it thrilled me. But danger doesn't stay hidden for long. One of the younger players, the kind who always spoke before thinking, leaned over after his second beer. He smirked, eyes flicking between us. "So what's up with you two? You're like glued together lately." The words hit harder than they should have. My chest clenched. The room went quiet enough for me to hear the hum of the fridge. Lucas froze. For the briefest moment, something flickered across his face. Fear, maybe, or the instinct to run. Then he laughed, too quickly, too sharp. "We're just friends," he said, his voice louder than it needed to be. "Come on, man, don't start rumors." The others chuckled, some awkward, some amused, and the conversation stumbled back to safer ground. But the air between us had shifted. I forced a smile, nodded along, pretended the words didn't sting. Just friends. For the rest of the night, Lucas kept his distance. No more glances, no small touches. He sat with his arms folded, polite but guarded, like someone had just built a wall between us and locked the door. I felt that with every laugh he forced, every second he avoided my eyes. When the night finally ended and we walked back across campus, silence pressed down heavier than the darkness around us. I wanted to say something to break the tension, but my throat was tight. Finally, I asked, "You okay?" "Yeah," he muttered, though the words sounded brittle. I pushed gently. "You sure?" He stopped walking. His jaw tightened, and when he finally looked at me, his eyes were full of something I couldn't name. "I can't. Not yet." The words cut deep, sharper than I expected. "Can't what?" "Be seen with you like that," he admitted, his voice low, almost breaking. "If people talk, if my dad hears, it would ruin everything. Everything I've worked for. Everything he's pushed me toward. I can't risk it." I swallowed hard. The sting of betrayal burned, but so did the understanding. I knew his father's shadow, the weight of expectation that followed him everywhere. I knew how heavy that crown was, even when he wore it so perfectly in public. Still, it hurt. "I'm just supposed to pretend?" I asked quietly. His shoulders slumped, and for once he didn't look like the star quarterback. He just looked tired. "I like you, Jamie. I really do. But right now, I have to keep some walls up. Just for a while." I wanted to argue, to tell him how much it tore at me to be hidden, to hear him deny us in front of everyone. But instead, I just nodded. Because as much as it hurt, I understood. Fear has a way of sinking its teeth in, and Lucas had more to lose than anyone else. The walk back to our dorms was quiet. He kept a step ahead, hands shoved deep into his pockets, and I let the space between us grow. When we reached his building, he turned, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not yet, but I promise I want this. I want you. Just not now." I stood there, my chest heavy with both hope and disappointment. "Okay," I said, though the word felt like a lie in my mouth. He nodded once, then disappeared inside, leaving me alone in the cold. That night, lying awake in my bed, the weight of it settled in. For weeks, we had been building something fragile, something real, and in a single moment it had cracked. He hadn't rejected me completely, but he had pushed me back into the shadows. And the worst part was, I couldn't even blame him, because as much as I hated the hiding, as much as the denial stung, I still wanted him. And I knew I'd keep waiting, even if it meant holding my breath in the dark while he figured out how much of himself he was willing to risk. The championship game felt like a blur. The stands were packed, the lights blinding, the noise relentless. Lucas played like a machine, carrying us on his back. Every throw perfect, every move unstoppable. To the world, it looked like he was invincible. To me, I saw something different. Behind every touchdown celebration was a strain in his eyes, a weight pulling him down even as the scoreboard lit up with victory. When the final whistle blew and the crowd stormed the field, everyone rushed him, lifting him up like he was already a legend. I tried to find him in the chaos, but by the time I pushed through the crowd, he was gone. Vanished. No locker room celebration, no interviews, no sign of him at all. I waited, texted, called. Hours passed. Nothing. The rest of the team celebrated late into the night, but all I could think about was the empty silence of my phone. The unease grew heavier until I couldn't take it anymore. I left the noise behind and walked across town, heart pounding, until I reached his house. His father opened the door. The man was as imposing as Lucas had described, broad, sharp-eyed, a figure built on discipline and expectations. For a second, I thought he'd slam the door in my face. Instead, he studied me, then said quietly, "He's upstairs." I didn't ask how he knew why I was there. I just climbed the stairs with my pulse roaring in my ears. The door to Lucas's room was cracked open. I knocked once softly. "Come in," he said, his voice thin. He sat on the edge of his bed, shoulders hunched, hands gripping his knees like he was holding himself together. His eyes were darker than I'd ever seen, and when they met mine, I felt the storm inside him. "I didn't answer your texts," he said. "I know," I replied, stepping closer. I was worried. He didn't look away, but his jaw tightened. Finally, he whispered, "I missed you." The words knocked the air out of me. I sat beside him, careful not to push too close. "I missed you too." He dragged a hand through his hair, frustration etched in every movement. "I can't keep doing this. I can't keep pretending. Not for myself. Not from you." He gestured vaguely around the room, as if the walls themselves were part of the cage holding him in. "You don't have to pretend with me," I said quietly. His hands trembled. "You don't understand. Everything I am, everything I've built, my dad, my family, the team, it all depends on me being who they want me to be. If they knew," he stopped, biting his lip hard. "If they knew, it would all come crashing down." I reached for his hand. This time he didn't pull away. "I do understand, but you don't have to carry it all alone." His grip tightened, desperate. "I'm scared, Jamie. Scared that if I let this out, I'll lose everything. The game. My family. The future I've been forced to chase since I was a kid. But the worst part? I can't stop thinking about you. No matter how much I try, no matter how hard I fight it, it's real. What I feel for you is real." The raw honesty in his voice broke something inside me. I brushed my thumb over his knuckles, steady even as my own chest ached. "Then let be real. With me. No matter what the rest of the world thinks." He shook his head, anguish clear in every word. "Not yet. I need to do this on my terms. I need to come out when I'm ready, not when the world forces me to." His eyes searched mine, pleading. "Promise me you'll wait." I swallowed hard, my throat burning. "I promise." He exhaled sharply, almost a sob, almost relief. For the first time that night, his shoulders lowered, the mask slipping completely. He leaned into me, not for a kiss, not for passion, but for closeness, for the simple comfort of being held. I wrapped an arm around him, feeling the tremor in his body, the fight between the boy he was and the man the world demanded him to be. We stayed like that for a long time, silent except for the steady rhythm of his breath. No victory chants, no roaring crowds, just two people clinging to each other in the dark. When it was finally time to leave, he walked me to the door. His father stood in the hall, watching, but said nothing. Lucas's hand brushed mine one last time, lingering before slipping away. "Good night, Jamie," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Good night, Lucas," I answered, carrying the weight of his pain with me as I stepped out into the cold. The streets were empty as I walked back, but my head was anything but. He wasn't ready to face the world, not yet. But he had faced me. He had admitted the truth, even if it lived only between us. And that was enough to keep me waiting, no matter how much it hurt. The weeks after the championship passed in a haze of stolen moments. To everyone else, life went on the same. Classes, practice, the rhythm of a season shifting into off-season. But for us, everything was different. For the first time, we were honest with each other. Lucas had admitted what he felt, and I had promised to wait. It wasn't freedom, not yet, but it was truth. And that mattered more than I'd ever imagined. We found our ways to be together without being seen. Study sessions in the library where our knees pressed under the table. Coffee runs before sunrise when no one else was around. Walks through empty neighborhoods where we could hold hands without fear. None of it was enough, but each moment stitched us closer together. Every laugh, every touch, every word reminded me that what we had wasn't fragile anymore. It was real, even if hidden. Still, the pressure never disappeared. His father's expectations hung over him like a constant shadow. The team talked about his future, about the NFL, about destiny written in stone. Sometimes I catch him staring off into the distance, lost in thoughts he didn't share. I knew he was fighting himself, torn between who he was supposed to be and who he wanted to be. And every time, I reminded him quietly, you don't have to be alone in it. One night, after a long walk back from the field, we sat on the curb outside his house. The street was silent, the world asleep, just the two of us breathing in the cold air. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and said, I'm scared every day. Scared someone will see. Scared my dad will find out. Scared of losing everything I've worked for. He paused, then glanced at me. But the one thing I'm not scared of is you. My throat tightened. I wanted to tell him that was enough, that being fearless with me was worth more than any trophy. But I didn't interrupt. I let him finish. One day, he continued, I'll tell the truth. I don't know when, but I promise you, I will. I don't want to hide forever. I want the world to know what you mean to me. Just not yet. I nodded, even though the words stung. Waiting wasn't easy. It meant biting my tongue when he laughed with teammates, standing a step too far away in public, swallowing the ache of being invisible. But it also meant keeping him, holding on to what we had, no matter how quiet it had to be. I'll be here, I said, no matter how long it takes. He reached for my hand, squeezing it tight, and in that moment I believed him. Our secret became both a burden and a gift. A burden because it weighed on us, pressing down whenever someone looked too closely. A gift because it bound us together, something only we shared, a truth carved out of whispers and late nights. Love and hiding still changed us. It made us braver, stronger, more certain of what we wanted. There were days when the fear nearly broke us, when the silence in the locker room felt suffocating, when the thought of being discovered loomed like a threat. But there were also days when the smallest things carried us through. His hand brushing mine under the table. His voice cracking when he said goodnight. The way he looked at me when no one else was watching. Those moments were enough to remind me why I stayed. I learned that love doesn't need a spotlight to matter. It doesn't need approval or recognition to be real. Even in the shadows, it shapes you, changes you, forces you to face yourself. Lucas taught me that, and maybe in some way I taught him too. The night before winter break, as we stood outside my dorm, he pulled me close and whispered, I don't know what the future looks like, but I know I want you in it. That was all I needed. We weren't ready to tell the world. Maybe it would take months, maybe years. Maybe he'd lose everything when the truth finally came out. Or maybe, just maybe, he'd find freedom. But until then, we had each other. And that was enough. When I walked inside, my chest was heavy with both pain and hope. Pain because hiding hurt more than I wanted to admit. Hope because I knew, deep down, that love, even hidden, had already changed us. It made him softer, made me stronger, and gave us both a reason to keep fighting. And as I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, I realized something I hadn't before. Secrets can feel like chains, but they can also be promises. And ours was simple. One day, when the world was ready, or when we stopped caring if it was, we'd stop hiding. Until then, we'd keep going one quiet step at a time. Because love, even in secret, is still love. And sometimes, that's enough to keep you alive.